Come out now. Any prohibited items on you?
No.
Imagine a prison so remote, so brutal, that even the worst criminals in Russia whisper about it with fear. A place carved into the cliffs of an island fortress, where icy waters surround concrete walls and escape is not only impossible, it's unthinkable. Welcome to the place they call Russia's Alcatraz. Known officially as the Vladimir Central Prison's IK6 colony, but nicknamed the Alcatraz of Russia. This facility isn't just a high-security prison, it's a sentence to disappear. Here, the guilty don't just lose their freedom, they lose themselves. Located on the remote Ogneny Ostrov, or Fire Island, in the middle of Lake Novozero, this high-security facility has served Russia for decades. It was built on the site of an ancient monastery, a place once devoted to spiritual salvation, now transformed into a house of despair. Russia's most violent, unrepentant criminals end up here. Men with multiple life sentences, serial killers, terrorists, mass murderers.
We are here at the entrance to the prison. Detained behind these walls, there are 189 men. Each of them has been sentenced to life. Terrorists, serial killers, offenders, gang bosses, and murderers. They've committed a variety of crimes.
And once you enter this fortress, you don't get out. With its weather-beaten walls, endless isolation, and a regime that feels more medieval than modern, Russia's Alcatraz doesn't just punish the body, it crushes the soul. Built for no escape. Fire Island is surrounded by icy lake waters that freeze over in winter and become treacherously deep and frigid in summer. The only way in or out is by a heavily guarded boat or helicopter. Even then, storms and dense fog frequently cut off access entirely. The prison itself is encircled by double fences, armed watchtowers, and electric barriers. Its location is its greatest weapon. Escape isn't an option, not because of bars or locks, but because nature itself has conspired to keep men trapped here. The isolation is absolute. No nearby cities, no nearby towns, just water, cold winds, and silence. But even within the walls, the infrastructure is built to ensure that not even a fantasy of escape can take root. Tunnels are monitored for seismic activity. The gates are computer-controlled and reinforced. Multiple layers of security checks must be passed before accessing even the outer courtyard. And yet, what truly traps these inmates isn't just the geography. It's the hopelessness. To dream of escape would mean dreaming at all. And in this place, hope is just another prisoner. Who gets sent to Fire Island? Only Russia's most dangerous criminals are sent to this facility. Men like convicted terrorist Irek Hamidulin and mass murderers who showed no remorse. Inmates have committed crimes so violent, so disturbing, that there's no debate about their sentences.
The main crime committed by the convicts here is murder. But we also have maniacs, pedophiles, and terrorists.
These are criminals the state cannot risk reintroducing to society. Many have murdered repeatedly, even from behind bars. For them, Fire Island is the end of the road. They live under 24/7 surveillance. Guards monitor their every move. Their psychological profiles are reviewed regularly to assess risk of violence, not against others, but against themselves. Because here, the worst danger isn't escape. It's what these men are capable of doing to themselves after months, even years, of silence. Some of the men confined here are household names in the Russian criminal world. Others are whispers on the wind. Assassins, enforcers, extremists whose names never made it to the media. But the crimes speak louder than the headlines. Inmates like Yevgeny Kryukov, known for orchestrating bombings in public squares. Or Vladimir Ustinov, once a mafia boss, now locked in isolation after attempting to bribe guards and stage a riot in another facility. Each man sent here carries a file filled with darkness, pages of confessions, crime scene photos, court transcripts, and that file travels with them, stamped with one final word: irredeemable. Life inside hell. Prisoners at Fire Island live in 2 by 3 meter cells. Concrete walls, no windows, a steel door with a slot for food. Inmates are allowed outside just once a day, and only for an hour, in a small enclosed yard surrounded by high walls and barbed wire. The temperature? Sub-zero for more than half the year. The food? Barely enough to survive. A piece of bread, thin soup, sometimes porridge. No luxuries, no visitors, no contact with the outside world. Prisoners are issued plain uniforms. No personal items, no books unless cleared, no conversations unless authorized. It's a system built on deprivation, of warmth, of contact, of meaning. And that's by design. But deprivation doesn't mean chaos. On the contrary, life inside the facility is eerily regimented. Every movement is scheduled to the second. Cells are checked 3 times a day. Clothing must be folded to strict specifications. Inmates must stand for inspection, regardless of their mental or physical condition. Even how a prisoner sits or breathes can be grounds for discipline. This constant control extends to psychological warfare. Lighting in cells is manipulated to disorient prisoners' circadian rhythms. Meals are served at irregular hours. Guards practice calculated indifference, rarely speaking, rarely reacting, letting the silence swallow the soul. The guards who never blink. Security at Russia's Alcatraz is beyond strict. Guards rotate constantly to avoid becoming predictable. Each wing is manned by officers trained in riot control and psychological defense. Each cell is checked multiple times a day. Surveillance cameras are mounted in every hallway. Conversations are recorded. Doors are controlled electronically from a central room. No movement happens without permission. And for the guards, the mental toll is high. Many report depression, burnout, and paranoia. Because in this fortress, trust doesn't exist. Not between inmates, not between guards, not even in yourself. Guards undergo frequent psychological evaluations. The administration knows that in a place like this, where one wrong word can trigger violence, or worse, stability is a survival skill. New recruits are tested in simulation chambers mimicking the prison's conditions before ever stepping foot into the real compound. Guard units switch posts every 15 minutes during night shifts to prevent fatigue. Even their uniforms are designed for intimidation, black, unmarked, with mirrored visors that make eye contact impossible. The philosophy is simple. If the inmates cannot read you, they cannot manipulate you. Yet for all their strength, even the guards know they're as much a part of the prison as the men they watch. Famous cases and notorious inmates. Russia's Alcatraz has held some of the most infamous names in Russian criminal history. While the Russian government rarely releases the full list of inmates, several high-profile names have leaked. One such inmate was convicted of over 20 contract killings linked to organized crime. Another, a religious extremist, attempted to assassinate government officials. Then there are the nameless, the inmates whose crimes were so horrific the state sealed their records. But they're here, serving life, in a place where life barely exists.
I've committed rape and murder in a very cruel way.
What do you mean by very cruel?
I abused my girlfriend. Don't know what to say. I injured her internal organs as well.
What does that mean?
I'm ashamed to speak about it.
What did you do?
I tore her internal organs out with my bare hands.
Some reports mention individuals from espionage backgrounds, former military officers turned traitors. There's whispered talk of a man known only by his codename, Karakurt, allegedly involved in multiple state-level cyber-terrorism acts, whose real name has never been released. His arrival at Fire Island was never officially confirmed, but a new cell was sealed off in the highest security wing, and new guard protocols were quietly introduced the same week. Others include cult leaders who manipulated dozens into acts of unspeakable violence. Fire Island, it seems, doesn't discriminate by motive, only by monstrosity. Here, ideologies, loyalties, and backgrounds mean nothing. Only the crimes echo through the frost. Mental decay and psychological torture. Experts say that Fire Island's greatest weapon isn't physical punishment, it's time. Time spent alone, in silence, with no stimulation, no purpose, no connection to the outside world. Inmates reportedly suffer from hallucinations, paranoia, and suicidal thoughts. Some stop speaking altogether. Others engage in self-harm just to feel something. Anything. A former guard once told a Russian journalist, "These men come in dangerous, but after a few years here, they're shadows, not men. The goal is not to rehabilitate, it's to erase." Sleep is fragmented. Inmates report waking up unsure if it's morning or night. The absence of clocks, natural light, or timekeeping tools amplifies this effect. Guards use deliberate irregularities, delayed meals, unexpected inspections, unexplained isolation periods, to confuse and disorient. Some prisoners beg to be transferred to lower security facilities, not for better food or freedom, but simply to hear another voice, to see the sun without a cage around it. One psychologist who visited Fire Island on a state-approved review said, "If the human soul has a basement, this is where it lives." Where mercy ends. Fire Island was designed to be the last stop. There are no appeals, no hope of release. Even the Russian Orthodox Church, which traditionally advocates mercy for even the worst sinners, has largely stayed silent on this facility. And that silence? It speaks louder than any sermon ever could. Families rarely make the journey. It's too far, too remote, too painful. Some relatives even go so far as to officially declare their loved ones dead, not out of hate, but out of emotional survival. For many of these inmates, they no longer exist in the minds of the people who once called them sons, brothers, or husbands. And in turn, the prisoners themselves begin to forget. Letters sent to inmates often go unanswered, not because they can't read them, but because some no longer remember how to respond. Psychiatrists have coined it institutional amnesia, a condition where prolonged isolation erodes not only memory, but the very sense of identity. Names fade, the past blurs. Eventually, the man who committed the crime becomes a ghost inside his own skin. And the silence inside the prison? It isn't peaceful. It's suffocating. In other parts of the world, debates rage on about prison reform, dignity, and rehabilitation. But not here. Fire Island remains untouched. Politicians don't speak of it. Journalists are rarely allowed in. What happens behind those frozen walls is hidden behind layers of geography, secrecy, and indifference. No reform, no spotlight. Just the icy belief that some men are better forgotten than forgiven. Final verdict. Russia's Alcatraz is not just a prison. It's a warning, a monument carved in frost and concrete, reminding the world what it means to truly disappear. It doesn't advertise executions. It doesn't host riots. It doesn't need to. Its power lies in something far more sinister: invisibility. To be sentenced here isn't to live out your days. It's to be slowly peeled away from yourself. There are no rehabilitation programs, no creative outlets, no therapy sessions to process guilt or grief. Just time, endless time, measured not in days, but in eroded thoughts and faded memories. And in that unraveling lies the point. Fire Island isn't designed to punish with pain. It punishes with absence, with erasure. It wipes the slate of evil not with fire or blood, but with frost, with cold, with stillness. Even in death, there's little fanfare. Many prisoners are buried in unmarked graves near the facility. No tombstones, no mourners, just snow. In the end, Russia's Alcatraz doesn't kill you. It lets you live, just long enough to forget why you ever wanted to. The price of forgotten justice. So how does a prison like this continue to operate in the modern world? Unchecked, unexamined, and almost entirely unseen. The answer lies in Russia's complicated relationship with justice. In a country where law and order are often synonymous with survival, the notion of mercy takes a back seat. Public opinion polls suggest that most Russians view places like Fire Island as necessary. Brutal, yes, but justified. After all, these are the worst of the worst, right? But not everyone agrees. Human rights organizations, both domestic and international, have repeatedly raised alarms. Groups like Memorial and Amnesty International have called Fire Island a living tomb, accusing the government of violating multiple international treaties against inhumane treatment and prolonged solitary confinement. One report stated, "What we see here is psychological annihilation. It is not justice. It is disappearance." And yet, these accusations fall on cold, deaf ears. The Russian state rarely acknowledges the criticism. Officials insist that the inmates housed there are beyond redemption, that society's safety depends on their permanent isolation. Even inside Russia, few dare to speak out. Those who do are branded as traitors, sympathizers, or worse. Journalists investigating the facility have found doors slammed shut, cameras confiscated, interviews denied. Fire Island isn't just protected by ice and steel. It's shielded by fear, and by a belief that true justice is not found in courts or laws, but in silence. So the world moves on, out of sight, out of mind. And beneath the frozen surface of Lake Novozero, the coldest prison on Earth continues its silent work, grinding down the human soul until nothing remains. In a world of maximum security prisons, Russia's Alcatraz stands as one of the most unforgiving. It doesn't make headlines. It doesn't need to. Its reputation speaks for itself. Because for those who enter Fire Island, the sentence is not just years or decades. It's erasure. If this breakdown left you speechless, hit the like button. Subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most dangerous places, and let us know in the comments. Would you survive even 1 week inside? Because in Russia's Alcatraz, even survival comes at a price.